Alright, Malcolm, here we are, part 2.
We've had our comfort break.
Yeah, we had our cup of tea, and let's continue with a few documents.
This is just a very short one, which is 2 files, CIA files, which are 5810, Soviet official representative
In Mexico.
in Mexico, and then 100-5-1, Soviet intelligence services in the USA.
Where are they?
And that's the, well, I can understand, but some of that stuff probably is relevant. Whether it's ever been searched or not, I don't know. But that's on 00102.
What does that mean? What do this 00102?
That's HSCA.
Okay.
So that's the HSCA number. This one, I don't know if you want to let people know that number if they want to have a look. That's quite.
00102.
Yeah, and this applies to 2 CIA files.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's going to be in the link. I'm going to scan all this together in one go, and people can plow through that.
One of the things that I've been asked about over the years has been Win Scott's files, with his legendary P files.
Oh, the one that disappeared because Jimmy Angleton came around and
well,
took it all? Or?
Well, I think it got moved sideways moved back to headquarters basically.
Yeah.
But it looks like the destruction date of Angleton's files was quite late. Actually, here's the destruction document from the CIA,
Right.
and this is destroyed
January
87.
Right.
There you go. So that's the actual. They call it euphemism again. Retired record table.
Retired record table,
Yeah.
RRT.
Yeah. So and that's
Mexico City files. Chief of Station Mexico City files.
Yeah.
Collection in files on station at time of death of COS Winston M. Scott. And the destruction was, the DISP date is January 87. And then the change date 12 January. Okay.
You see, people that have looked at Mexico City, particularly with Win Scott, his P files, these so-called P files, if you like, his working files, his system was legendary. He had almost everything in those files. He kept everything, but he kept, unlike me, he kept everything in apple pie order. Every single thing. Every tiny fragment of paper was indexed. People knew exactly where everything was.
So he's a meticulous note taker.
Meticulous files. And
Okay.
so that's there. And this is this is the cover that came with that. Okay, so you have to bear in mind that document. Okay. So they did the schedule. This schedule is secret. It's not. You can't normally see any of this, but a special dispensation. They allowed this one page out to explain what happened to Win Scott's Mexico City files. And then if you look at this little note, it's very interesting because what they're trying to do really is to see that they destroyed Win Scott's records because they were allowed to destroy working copies of documents. Now I've had that at NARA. I had that with an archivist. I said to the archivist, well, where's the index of some stuff? Oh, it's in my working papers. I'm allowed to destroy that. So this is interesting. So this wonderful collection of Win Scott's files, the complete collection here, destroyed. And there are copies out there, P copies of Win Scott's files are in Oswald's 201 file. They're scattered throughout the collection, a few, but nothing like the whole collection. So we've lost a great, just there, you know. For those people that are interested in Mexico City, this is a big loss, huge, huge loss. And only in...
This will depress them.
Yeah, in 1987, it's not that long ago, really.
Well, almost 40 years.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, but they were still around. They were still around. That's what I'm thinking. But you know, you see that really goes with that, and you can read that.
Okay.
This is about
ARB, Dog Horn.
Yeah, and the O&I defector files.
O&I defector files.
Which Florence Commander Pike found. And Doug does this letter, this memo, for the file here. Well, it's to Laura Denk, okay, and he's explaining what happened. That the O&I defector files, which would have been extremely useful because you would have found stuff relating to Oswald, if it was, you know, west to east. That there was actually, we're talking about here, what they're saying is the documents they received for naval intelligence were only those who travel from the west.
To the Eastern Bloc.
No, from the Eastern Bloc to the west. So where is it? Yeah, defectors from the Eastern Bloc to the west. So that's all. That's what these records were that Florence Pike found. This is the same Florence Pike that was like labelled, allegedly defrauded her expenses and generally smeared by her superiors when she was doing this investigation for the ARB. She was actually looking and finding things, or so she thought, and so Doug Horn found. But what we actually find here is that on the surface, what we find is when you read it, and I was talking about this, when you reread it, you get it. I get it. You know, it took them a long time to get these files to the review board.
May 98.
Right, okay. And they're actually in a...
So it's been more like a year and a bit.
8 cubic feet of defector files.
Wow.
In response to the Burger.
8 cubic feet.
Right, so the stuff comes in, okay? The stuff comes into the review board, and when they look at it, oh, it's all for defectors that are going the other way. They're not going west to east, but coming into the US. So, and for some reason they don't include, you know, like people like Golitsyn or Nasenko, which is very strange. But I mean, that's... and then Doug says, I could find no mention of any defectors from the west to the east. Well, Doug, let me give you a clue. For a year and a bit, O&I had enough time to work out their response. And their response was to give you and a review board only defectors, only files on defectors that went from east to west. The west to east defector file that Florence Pike found went down the tube, went down the crapper.
To repeat, I could find no mention of any defectors from the west to the east in these documents. The criteria used were the names in the HSCA's very thorough defector study. These records do not appear to be assassination records based on content. Furthermore, there's no evidence that the HSCA or Warren Commission looked at these files. Staff recommendation: inasmuch as RIFs should not have been created by O&I unless the documents were assassination records. And since these records do not appear to be assassination records, recommend they be exempted from review under the JFK Act. So we're talking NBR. Board delivered these files, declared these files NBR on September 14, 1998.
And rightly so. You know, rightly so. We're not looking for. They're not looking for defectors going from. Which way now? From
East to west.
To west. They're looking from west to east.
Yeah.
And this is what came up for Noah and I. Bear in mind, by this time Florence Pike had been well trashed. You know, she was allegedly fraudulently doing her expenses and all this stuff. And then she was had a nervous breakdown, and then this and blah 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 blah.
Like you do.
So you know, well taken care of.
Was she demoted or things like that?
I think she left. She
Yeah?
just left, and I think she was allowed to retire on health grounds. So the answer to that is don't find anything. If you get tasked to do something, don't
Keep
do
it hidden.
Keep your nose clean.
Yeah. Now then, this looks like a familiar document. to
Yeah,
me.
you got this, and it's but.
Is this ARB or HSCA?
No, this is NARA's quite an early
Oh.
list. This is from '97, so you can imagine what they've got now. But this is just some of their FBI holdings, which is massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Everybody keeps hammering on CIA documents, which you won't get, but it's much better to hammer on FBI documents because, for not just personal reasons, but the fact that they don't use that obfuscating language as much. I mean, feds are real bureaucrats, and when it comes to writing details down, they're pretty good at that.
that's funny. We were talking about these earlier on. You know, we were talking about the post '93
Yeah.
documents,
Yeah,
FBI
yeah.
documents, JFK investigation files.
Yeah.
Here we go now. 89A DL 60165. So if you can let the people know that number, they got a request for that number.
Box 273 89A DL Delta Lima 60165.
But you just forget the 273. Just ask for that file.
Right, and then it
89.
says dollars, secretary.
Section A. This was obviously a specific thing I was looking at that
Right.
time.
Oh, those are your notes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
His notes.
Right.
Oh yeah, these are all the field. Okay.
Yeah, you got
Field office files.
just massive amount of stuff.
Ruby, tons of Ruby here. Yeah, this is all, and then Oswald. This says record group 263.
That's CIA.
Yeah, and then more. My goodness, FBI all over Oklahoma, Minneapolis, Newark. All Oswald related stuff. It's all field offices.
Yes, a lot of
And
material.
I mean all over the place. Lots of files. Alright,
You got that scanned in.
I
I'm
probably
sure.
have it, yeah.
Yeah. This is the person I keep banging on about, which is Victor Marchetti. It was close to the centre of power, and he let a lot of stuff out. You sent me one document,
Oh yeah,
which differed.
from what you had.
Yeah, this is the one you sent me.
Right.
And I mean, you can see there's a difference. They actually classified stuff on the second page, which had already been released, and then released stuff they should have classified. Really.
That's not the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had this before, that you had your hands on certain documents,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
some spook walks in the archives and basically decides, hey, we should classify this.
Yeah, I think that is a hope with us, because the institutional memory of CIA is dying. So we've got a chance, but I mean, it's this is fascinating because this is what we get, Bart. It's 2 pages of notes, and you sent me the more open version. I had the less open version, really, and Marchetti is just... We haven't got any of his testimonies. None of his interviews, and his testimony, as far as I know, has not been released.
Yeah, why don't they ask about that? Things like that. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. If you know that stuff is hidden, why not ask for it? And this is what I don't understand, but people just think like something is going to come out. No, you need to put a list together of the stuff that's still remaining.
So here's 2 pages of notes. Do you know how long the interview was?
3 hours.
No, it wasn't quite 3 hours. An hour and a half. That's what we get.
Out of 90 minutes.
You get that.
That's not a lot.
So it's not a lot.
No, that's 5 bullet points.
Not a lot.
And this is the same?
No, they're slightly different notes because of, you know...
Oh, this is a page missing. Yeah.
should be
Oh, right here. Victor McKelly.
You got it?
Here we go. Item 4. In regard to project. Oh, MH Mutual. You raised several questions. All right, and then this bit is then redacted. So it's open on this one.
Yeah.
This is beautiful. Right. Let's give you a great example of classified documents and reclassifying documents. So, on the left, we have here, there's the project name, MH Mutual. He raised several questions. These include, where did the money come from? The blank fund, the blank fund, blank blank funds. Then you grab this one. So we have here the project redacted. Although, if you take a good look, if I put a light on that, I'll probably come out with that name. Yeah. But then it says here, where did the money come from? The retirement fund, the loan fund, credit union, and escrow funds. So that bit has been redacted after that has been opened up. And then this bit, which is still black here, which is, he suggested that 2 former PFB officials, Brian Eagle, now in the White House Office of Telecommunications, and Frank Walters, who might still be at CIA, might be knowledgeable about And then it says here again, MH Mutual. But the name, Frank Walters, has been redacted again. It has been redacted here. So they redact something, and then they get rid of the redactions, but put additional redactions on this. Yeah, well, you can't make this crap up. Alright, so in here we got a massive redacted box. Just look, that needs to be page 2, and that's all there. Right, so here we go. Here we go, we got a blank section right here. And the blank section actually means, which is here, we also discussed the Domestic Operations Division. He suggested we talk to Seymour Russell, who headed it, and Wally Lampshire, who helped out to set up DOD with Tracy Barnes.
Correct.
He thought DOD had grown out of the Domestic Operations Branch, which was set up in the early 50s to handle problems involving refugees from Eastern Europe. Oh well, you know, it doesn't sound like a big deal to me, but to them it was. And they were just joggling on. And then there's a third copy of this as well. I'll tell you what, it's all going to be there for your pleasure. Right, what else have... What other smoking gun do you have?
Smoking
oh, come on.
Oh, well, you know...
There's no smoking gun? No.
You see...
Oh, the emails.
Well, I was working on, you know, looking at this because I was trying to figure out whether I had the copy of this. 65,
Another
68043, that's an espionage file.
Yeah.
FBI.
FBI espionage file.
Okay, well, I think that is actually Kim Philby's file.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You believe it or you know it?
No, I know it.
Yeah?
65, 680, because the reason it was released by the FBI as part of the Kennedy collection was that they had a 22-page letter from someone, I don't know, some relative, I think, of Philby, Kim Philby, saying that she met Clay Shaw in London when he was in London, and she knew him as Victor Di Maria. Victor Di Maria. Well, interestingly, your letter, apart from one page, of the 22-page letter, only one page is released.
I wonder why.
That file number is FBI 124 102 99 121, and that relates to the Philby's FBI espionage file 65 68043.
Let me just put that riff number in. Hold on. 124.
Yep.
And then
102 99
yeah.
121.
It's at the National Archives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Black Vault has it too. Page not found. Here we go. 9-pager.
You might release some more. Interesting.
This is originally 22 pages.
Yeah. The review board looked at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Nice blacking out. This is Philby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Harold Adrian Russell Philby. So some redaction still. Then we took all this out. Blah 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 blah. And more.
Should we go back a bit? Back. Back.
What, down?
No, that way. No, the other way. Yeah.
First page. This is
First page. And it says, Clay Shaw mentioned in Handy's letter is according to her identical with Victor Di Maria. I just thought that was
alright, this is interesting.
that was interesting to follow that.
Okay,
up
so this-
maybe people are following it.
This
up.
document said Clay Shaw mentioned in Handley's letter is, according to her, identical with a Victor de Mario, a former U.S. military officer whom she met in England during World War II. Now this is a FBI document from October 27, 67. And the RIF number is 124 102 99 121. So that's 100 and then 21 behind it. It's a 9-pager, and of course there's all kinds of restrictions, and you know, this envelope is just there. And then we got these slips, notice of classification action. And 1, 2, same guy again in 77, and here it was also January 12th, and then here we've got another thing, deletions by the feds, and then we got the 2-page document. And that's it. So in the end we only have 2 pages to look at, and of that is, part of it is redacted.
Even part of the where she's talking about it.
Yeah.
This bit is redacted.
Yeah. Alright, interesting though, but it's there. I'll tell you what, I'm going to forward it to you, so at least you have that. Okay, what's the next one? Filthy. Send. Right.
Right. We talked at the very start, I think, we talked about the April Fool's Day
Yeah? Dog and Pony Show.
dog and pony show. And I don't mean to be disrespectful.
No, we're not.
You know, because, you know, some good may come out of it.
No, hopefully, yeah.
You know, and I have a lot of respect for Jeff and Morley and
I wouldn't be sitting here without Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone.
Yes, that's the whole thing. I mean, people say, "Oh, Stone, this, Stone." No, I wouldn't be sitting here
and Jim.
if it were. And Jim Eugene also puts
It's-
tons of effort in it.
I mean, you know, Jim is like, you know, I've said to him in the past, if I was a kid at school, youngster at school, I'd love to be taught by Jim DeGenio. I mean, he's really good. He's such a great communicator. So,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, the way it was set up, it was almost like it wasn't set up, doesn't it?
You know what? If there is a bit of a push for the films and documentation to come out, that will be the result. I'm more than happy with everything.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
Because I can get on with it. And move on.
You'll even vote for Trump next time.
So, what's this?
This is, we talked at the beginning about
Church committee records.
the Hartswiker, and that's a good summary there.
Okay, let me read the summary for everybody. This is important. Trying to do this. Okay, summary of the call. This comes from Ron Haron and Jim Johnston. Jim Johnston, who worked on the Church Committee's JFK Assassination report today, called me at the suggestion of Steve Tilley. Mr. Johnson was at the NARA today reviewing the Church Committee records in the JFK collection. He told Mr. Tilley and later me that the Hart Schweiker materials do not appear to be among the Church Committee records in the JFK collection. He thus provided further confirmation for our assessment that major records from the Hart Schweiker subcommittee, which relate directly to the assassination of JFK, have not yet been identified under the JFK Act. Mr. Johnston identified some of the items that should be in the JFK collection, like Roselli's 1976 testimony. This has been referred to the FBI. 2 testimony of the CIA case officer who dealt with AM/Lash. We have requested this from the Senate Intelligence Committee. 3. Transcript of an executive session in December of 75, early 76, in which the FBI briefed the committee. And 4. Transcript of the May 76 executive session, in which the committee discussed the proposed JFK report. Mr. Johnston stated that he remembered the Hart Schweiker files being separate from the remainder of the Church Committee files. Mr. Johnston was also told by someone that the Hart Schweiker materials were turned over to the HSCA. We should therefore double check and see if any of the Church Committee transcripts are among the HSCA numbered files. Mr. Johnson said that he would contact another person who worked for on the Church Committee to see if he can obtain further information regarding the disposition of the Hart Schweiker material. He would call back. Well, this was written on December the 15th from Ron Haron, 1997.
That's a huge amount of material.
How much material are we talking about?
Which is relevant, I don't know, what would be in a committee that was sitting every day and, you know, with a fantastic investment. I forgot that. Investigators. I've copied it twice.
Like you do?
Like I do, if I could consider it to be.
Malcolm's notorious for that.
I don't know if I got it.
Alright, let's move on. Oh, I send you all the online files that I find. Yeah, I remember.
You remember that one? I mean, that's more material. I mean,
This is from Michelle Coombs.
Yeah.
And the subject is NSA liaison files at FBI. March 3rd, 1998.
well, if they've been labelled NBR, we should see them.
On March 3, 1998, I reviewed 4 FBI files on liaison with the Armed Forces Security Agency and its successor, the NSA, for material possible relevance to an understanding of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. I was given full access to these files. The 4 files covered the time period 50 to 60, inclusive. The files contain numerous memoranda, reports, letters, and administrative forms on such issues as the U.S. Communications Intelligence Board, the handling of cryptographic materials, COMINT priorities, technical assistance, operational cooperation, administrative matters, and the separation or delineation of duties and responsibilities between the FBI and the NSA. Monty, I saw no material of relevance to the assassination in these 4 liaison files. So,
Well,
was there, wasn't there, but you know what?
you know,
You wrote down, fuck this. So,
yeah, but you know,
go on.
4 boxes. You know, we don't know. They must have been labelled NBR. Now, this little bit of opaque Michelle Coombs delivery here.
You suspect there's something in it.
No, I'm looking at the fact this material. What year are we looking at?
It is from between 50 and 60.
1950 to 60. Oh no. You see, the National Security Agency had total coverage over Cuba, all their communications, everything. I just think, as an example of that, because people don't believe me on this, Alton Quambach, who was an investigator for the Church Committee, he determined that Cuba never went on the alert because none of their forces ever moved, and that information came from the NSA. So it's clear that NSA's monitoring was so complete of Cuban communications, you see? So complete. And you would get confirmation of that in these files.
Right.
Okay? You would get confirmation of how complete their surveillance, communication surveillance of Cuba was. So, if it's labelled NBR, release it.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good argument. If it is NBR, why not release it instead of...
And this was, I was talking earlier on about the Hartswiker Committee and Tom Moore. Here's an example of Tom Moore, and it's to do with Demorenshield. He did this with Vesiana. He went crazy with Vesiana, Tom Moore, because CIA delivered a whole swathe of Vesiana files. Not the few pages of CIA files we have on Vesiana. This is like huge amount of material, and it was all classified.
Tom Moore's HSCA.
So Tom Moore is like jumping up and down because he's security classified through the roof, and the CIA delivered him classified files. What's that about? And they did the same with Demorenshield. You read that.
Oh, Tom Moore is a church committee.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he was working for the Swiker Hart.
Okay.
Yeah. Hartswiker. See, I wrote at the bottom, CIA runs into snags.
Oh, this is interesting. I need to find Tom Moore.
I think so. Anybody in America know Tom Moore?
Moore with double O. TOMMORE. O-O-R-E.
The work for the Hart-Swiker Committee back in the 70s.
Find him. Yeah, okay. Well, it's going to be part of the documents.
Right.
Oh, my favourite.
This is an old one.
FBI, old stuff.
This is
Everybody.
old stuff, but I remember why I copied this. It was because this little piece of cardboard was attached,
Mhm.
you know, and it gives all these
Numbers.
espionage files.
They're all 65
And
files.
do you know? Yeah, that's right. 65 is espionage file. So I've always banged on about Oswald's espionage file. So in my mind, I just wondered that number there, 1058255, right?
Yeah.
That's Oswald's internal security file.
Uh-huh.
Right. Okay. Is the next file related to that? Could it be? If that's true, we've got Oswald's espionage number there, 6567568.
Well, that's quite interesting. Oh, this is our interview on Nosenko.
Yeah.
This dates March 4th, 1964. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know this bit, the specifics this.
Yeah. There's a whole swathe of espionage file numbers there. But I suspect they belong to defectors. That one next to Oswald's 105 file might apply to him. I'm not sure. You know,
Interesting.
you get these things.
Yeah. Go on.
This one,
I'm sorry for yawning. I've had a very long week.
he's having a long afternoon.
Yeah.
So that one, I've always.
Howard Hunt. Right. This is August 6, 1971. I don't see a lot in this document, but that's then probably my problem. But
Right, let's go on. This is from when Hunt applied for a job at the White House. FBI had to do.
oh, the plumbers.
Before all that.
Right.
But he went to, obviously he was seconded to the White House. He went to the White House, and FBI was tasked with doing a background investigation. And this guy.
George F. Murphy.
He was quite a high-ranking CIA officer that went to the, after he left CIA, went to the Atomic Energy Authority in America, and then became a very senior guy in the AEC, the Atomic Energy. He says he's deputy director of the Joint. He's no slouch.
No.
Anyway. But it looks like he got Angleton's first name wrong. He's gone down as John Angleton.
Yeah.
It should be James Angleton. Right. Okay. So any testimony you see of Angleton, he denies even knowing the guy. Never wouldn't recognise him. Didn't know anything about him. Never heard of him. Right. Now then.
Here we go.
Here we go. These are notes of files I haven't seen. Right. So these are researchers' notes. Here.
ACCA.
I want you to read the bottom of the page. And this is on Hunt, right? It's micro details, isn't it? It's micro details. Come from different perspectives. This confirms that, which is no relation to this. So you have Angleton been involved with the hunt in 2 different places. One in an FBI background investigation, and one in an officer security file.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another person might say to me, well, what does it mean? Well, it means a lot.
I don't know, what does it mean? What does it mean, Malcolm? Malcolm, what does it mean?
Yeah, but,
You know?
and then
There was 7 shooters and...
yeah, right. But here's the third part, right?
Alright.
Angleton's response.
Angleton's response about all this. He does not recall appointee. He said in the
That's Hunt,
1950s
E. Howard Hunt.
he had numerous individuals working under his supervision. Of course you were. Now this, let's just have a look at this riff number. Because it's 124, 102, 11, 10243. Boom. Of course it will be in Mary Farrell. Yeah. Yeah, it's at Mary Farrell. So
Right.
this document is okay, it's online, but I understand.
Well, that's good.
I understand. Yeah. You know what? In the last few years, some of the stuff that has come, you see, this is another massive grievance I've got with these people. Oh, there's nothing in there. Really? You've read through all the 2,000, 3,000 pages? Just like that? You know it all? You know the interconnectivity between those documents and what's has been coming through in a redacted shape or form? Of course you know about this. My message to those people? Simple. It is simple.
And this one, you must have got sick of seeing copies of this document.
Well, if you got sick of it, then I must have, because you duplicate
don't know,
stuff. So
I
I'd be
lost
like,
count of the
not
number
again.
of times I've
Not again.
copied this document. And I had a lot of to and fro with the archivists.
Like you do.
Like I did, yeah. I did at Nara. I think I'm more or less PNG there. Persona non grata. I mean, I did as much as I could do.
Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes it just has to be. And if it takes that, then fuck 'em.
I did send it to Rex.
Uh,
Rex did contact me later, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, saying a load of stuff had been released, but it was all redacted. And I think it's to do with this. So that all that needs to be released. All that. In full. Everything.
this is quite a big list.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go through this.
No.
Because I've got better
if
things
I
to
could
do.
summarise it down,
It's 223 names.
If you summarise it down, is much of that is to do with investigative work of the review board. It's crucial stuff. Crucial stuff. You know.
I spoke to Andrew Eiler a few weeks ago, and he had looked into the ARB stuff as well. And he couldn't get, I forgot what the terminology was, but he mentioned files that were meant to be there and they weren't there. And he went to Nara and he had a look and they couldn't find them. And I was like, yeah, you know what, this sounds like Malcolm's weekly experience back then in the day.
Yeah.
But, you know, one thing we got to give the Yanks, though, at least we can just walk into archives and basically start talking about things. I mean, compare this to some lord during World War II who misbehaved, or World War I, and basically wants to keep the name out of the public realm because, what would it do to the family name and so forth, the old aristocracy way. But, I mean, at least in the States, you can just knock on the door and walk in and go, well, I'd like to see this and this. Now, whether you get it or whether it's available, that's a different story.
I think the system changed so much because of the 2017, the first really big release, the Special Access staff, which were involved in the JFK investigation files,
Yeah.
the JFK files, completely hid away. You couldn't contact any of those people. They had one person downstairs that was seconded from looking at State Department files. The poor guy didn't, nice guy, but the poor guy had not the first clue about the JFK files. That's what you had to deal with. And then since then, I'm hearing from other people that worked at NARA, professional, researchers
Right.
that went to NARA.
Researchers.
That the restrictions, they went from 2 carts. You can have 24 boxes on each cart, 48 boxes. That's down to one cart, 16 boxes. You talk about user unfriendly.
That's a third of what you
User
used to
unfriendly
get.
system, and then and then if you went in as a team, 3 people, you could get extra boxes, extra carts, no problem. Not anymore. That's a problem. So I think there's been a really quite a clampdown.
But at least you could do it.
The release, the 2017 big release, was used as an excuse to really roadblock researchers.
Really? How so?
Because you can't deal with anybody that knows anything.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
The people that you should be talking to, you can't talk to.
Well, I found some great stuff in the 2017 releases. I've got to admit, the whole thing with Hoover and what's his name, who worked underneath Robert Kennedy.
Yeah.
What's his name? Oh, I hate that when I can't get the name. Big guy. Assistant, who wanted to get the documentation out to show that Oswald was the only solely guilty. I hate that. Katzenbach. Nicholas Katzenbach.
How do you forget that name?
Oh, you know what? I have to memorize 150 names, so sometimes, it just eludes me, escapes me,
Just
whatever. But yeah, Katzenbach and Hoover, and how that story unfolded, that came out in those 2017 releases. It was just priceless. And then on top of that, with the document that I found from you, with Clyde Tolson, which was at 4:15.
Yeah.
Well, Oswald was still being interrogated.
The
They already gone.
timings.
Yeah,
The timings.
exactly. It's the timings that give it away. It's the mechanical process that gives it away. When they say, "Hey, we need to get Oswald to be nailed down as the #1 suspect," and I'm going, he's only been in custody for 2 hours. He's in his first at that time.
Yeah.
It's 4:10. That's 10 minutes after the end of Oswald's first interrogation,
Right.
when Oswald's taken down for the Helen Markham lineup, which was nothing but drama and fainting and smelling salts and there was a cheer that when Dallas officers from Dallas officers when she was basically finally pointed Oswald out. Yeah. Oh well. Funny games.
I'll just be back in a sec.
No. Out comes the wheelbarrow with the extra documentation.
No, you can familiarise yourself with that one.
Okay, while you're gone. I've sent this. It says not online. Oh, this is the Webster case. This is from NARA, Department of State, from Richard Snyder no less, and has the title Webster case. RIF number 179-40001-10053. It's not online, so whether you have a copy or not, well, it remains to be seen. And this is from October 28, 59. From Richard Snyder. And this is all about Robert Webster. I'll read this out. Why not? Dear Mr. Hoster, the Webster case has pointed in the question up to the question here as to how far the embassy ought to go in defection cases in seeking to document the loss of citizenship of persons like Webster's in view of the often dubious circumstances surrounding such action under the conditions prevailing in the Iron Curtain. Webster appears to have lost citizenship under section 349 by obtaining naturalization in the USSR upon his own application. The regulations say that it is the department's desire that, if possible, the consular officer documents this with an official statement from the appropriate foreign authority confirming the performance of the act. It is the sense of the regulations, I believe, that the documentation of the loss be left with as few legal holes as possible. That's an interesting sentence. The question arises whether, in view of the special humanitarian and political considerations, the handling of cases of defection or voluntary expatriation of AMCH to the USSR, we ought to temper the normal consular guidelines
American citizen.
with a bit of Talleyrand dictum of Surtout par désir, in order to leave such avenues to repatriation as possible open to future contingency. On this basis we are inclined, although under the premises of the Webster case, there is no present indication that it would make any material difference to leave the matter of proof of the acquisition of Soviet citizenship to the future course of events. Libero Riccardiarelli, Department 837, August 1259, is another current case in question. The only evidence we have on Dick Ricciardelli is based on statement purportedly by him in the Moscow News of July 22, 1959, in which he renounced his American citizenship and accepted Soviet citizenship. Under extraordinary procedures, we would send official confirmation that he had assumed Soviet citizenship upon his own application and submit this to support a certificate of loss of nationality. The passive approach which I have so far taken, as much out of the dictates of time as of policy, is to take no action concerning his citizenship unless and until he contacts the embassy or the department specifically directs us to do so. We would appreciate. Okay, so this is from Richard Snyder. This is an interesting document, but I have to mention as well that from what I just read, it goes on by renouncing your citizenship. Now there's a document that I found in your collection from Robert Koch, whatever, former Attorney General, but before that he was working for the DOS, Department of State.
Correct.
And then when he's being asked, did Oswald renounce his citizenship? He said no, he did not. And he said it is a misconception to believe this, whereas this Fugazi was Chinese whispered on like there's no tomorrow.
But what I see there is timings. You talked about the timings,
Yeah.
cats and bat, and we have to be
vigilant, blah 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 blah. Yeah.
But what this is, when you analyse it, is a plea for Oswald before he arrives.
Yeah.
2 days before he arrives.
Okay.
The embassy.
I get it.
You get it?
Yeah, I get it.
It's just
They
extraordinary.
They open it up.
They open it up.
They open it up so it's easier for him to go through the process.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
Yes. Now,
Don't mess with the process.
as Pete Packley said to me once, it's neither witted or unwitted. Is he witted or unwitted?
There's no grey area in between this. Yeah. All right. Tasty.
So
More, not online. Yeah, go on. Let's have it. This is also from the DOS. One page, the Harvey Oswald.
now I have to say to
Oh,
you,
you've showed this to
I
me
have
before.
To say to you,
This is from the O&R.
what is there of any significance in that document?
Well, this is the passport office.
Yep.
Now Oswald just got a passport, just
What's
without.
the date? What's the date?
November 1359.
Right. So he's been in. Well, he's been a few weeks in the Soviet Union. Yeah. Okay.
I remember this. You sent this to me. Part of it. You sent this to me years back, and you marked this. I remember this. It was the date.
It looks like a nothing document, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For a start,
Yeah.
you know, our conversation earlier.
Atomic building.
Yeah, right.
Passport office.
Passport office, and then you know this round robin. So where's he going? He's going to the Pentagon. This is to Naval Intelligence, 921E2. Let's go to Naval Intelligence, and then interestingly, just there, look.
Oh, it says 15R or
No,
it's
ISR,
ISR.
Interagency Source Register.
Go on. Don't let them wait. Come on. Spit it out.
Well, it's Oswald is being checked against the Interagency Source Register by the Passport Office, I think.
Who happen to be in the same building. Don't forget. The Atomic building. Alright. Interesting.
Right.
Oh, let's talk about the single bullet theory instead. It's much more interesting.
Yeah. These are a group of. See, this is another group of documentation we don't have. Of when we talk about the Hart-Schwecker Committee, huge amount of material on the Rockefeller Commission. It's at the Ford Library.
Oh yeah.
So we need that stuff released. There's a lot of Kennedy related stuff there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a massive amount of stuff in some of these files, some of these presidential files. You know, like the Ford, Gerald Ford stuff. You know, stuff at the Gerald Ford Library. This is about.
Look at the redaction.
It looks quite. 52 volumes of internal CIA histories.
Histories between quotation marks. Yeah. But this document could have been released recently with the redactions taken
let's
away.
check it out.
It's gotta be. I mean, this is one thing I saw with the documents because I looked and I found about 5 or 6 documents that still had redactions in place.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting in itself, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you know, after all the talk and say, oh yeah, we've got it, blah blah blah, and it's all coming out. Well, obviously then.
Nearly all.
Right.
I mean, it's just a single page from LPJ Library, and this is really one for Jim Zizino and anybody interested in the Garrison trial and Clay Shaw, because it's just one of many. And this is in. You see that? It was sent to the SSCI, so it's sent to the Church Committee, along with other ones, along with other withdrawal slips. This is, every single page is classified. Look at that. Look at that.
Right.
Page
This
after page after page after page after page.
This involves Garrison a lot. Hoover to Stegall regarding report by New Orleans police officer. Attached memo Hoover to Stegall, Garrison. Again, Hoover to Stegall. Watson to President with attached Hoover to Stegall report by New Orleans police officer. To Stegall, more, loads of Stegall. Hoover to Watson regarding Clay Shaw. Hoover to Stegall regarding Garrison investigation. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again. These are all from March 67 up to including, if I have a quick look, August 68. And so the main action is all in March and April of 67. And there's some stuff in January 68. But yeah, this tells you just that there's page after page of this stuff over there.
Which the LBJ library should have released. Where is it? Last time I went through the 93 boxes, I couldn't see any of it.
See, that's the element of frustration I find really hard to deal with. If I go through 90 boxes,
93.
and then if I can't get it or it's not there, then you go, I've wasted my fucking time on this. What the hell, you know? I mean, the frustration element. How big is it?
Not so bad in those files, because there are lots of bits and pieces in the files which are interesting, so you don't get totally...
Alright, you're not nullified when it comes to information, but there's, you know, the thing is, what I find is that you always come across something where you go, I didn't think of that, and go, how did that appear?
Yeah.
And the problem is also, it never answers anything. It always gets me more questions, man.
Well, you said a true thing when we were meeting before one time about the fingerprints.
The fingerprints of intelligence.
Oh, God. No, the fingerprints of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, no, I'm going to talk about them in June.
Wow. That's some story.
That's just a massive clusterfuck.
Oh, God.
It's a joke.
Can you work out what was going on?
Yeah. That's why I'm going to do the evidence films after. This is the next thing. I think the evidence films are really important as well. I think for my book as well. I think it is afterwards, but it was done that weekend because Bill Alexander said so, and he went, "Oh no, I'm going to have everything covered."
Yeah.
And then the Mickey Mousery of just getting these records out and catalogued.
Yeah.
And that the FBI, it doesn't rhyme with the DPD, and you came up with 6 scenarios. And this is something you wrote in 1999 for Lancer, and it was like a 3-pager. And you went, well, I've got 6 scenarios. According to the documentation, I've got 6 scenarios. And I just thought, it just shows you how much fuckery we got going on with the dates and the pictures and just you know what?
They couldn't get the story straight.
No, exactly.
I
mean, the camera was like, oh, it was malfunctioning. We've got 50-odd images that aren't working. And I go, is this an idiot-proof camera? This is a camera where you just press the shutter and then you just wind it on and then you just press the shutter again. And this is not an electronic camera, this is a mechanical camera. You know? And also, if it were broken, they would have had a report and say, hey, it's busted, we had to send it back, we had to send it to X amount of X firm, blah, blah, blah. But instead, and this is where the fishiness is.
Well, they were all raved. Everybody that ever was associated with that camera all said how fantastic it was.
What was the name again?
Recordac.
Recordac.
Recordac 1C. Yeah. I'll send you the
manual. I got it.
Manual. Yeah.
I've got a copy of the manual. But you went to Holland to play with one.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to look at that. I got taken to a house. You know, typical Dutch house with a basement where you sort of had to like move a carpet. Lift a trap door up and go down some steps.
Really? Really? God. Can it be more suspicious?
Yeah. But he had a big collection of cameras, massive collection of cameras. Amazing.
But and so you saw the recording and went, "What is this? What it's all about?"
Yeah. And then he, I obviously mentioned, I think, the fact it had a fault, it was a faulty sort of thing used by the Dallas police after the assassination. They photograph it and no, no, not possible.
It's idiot proof.
Idiot proof. I think that was the term that was used. Idiot proof.
And also, they would have had a report on that and say, hey, it's busted. And also, if it's busted, they would have said, we want to reshoot the evidence. Give it back to us. Because they got all the evidence back from the FBI 5 days later. Because remember, Vince Drain, Hoover's friend, and basically went over to Dallas and picked up the evidence. The rifle, the blanket, the shirt, this, that, and the other. Yeah? Now, that would have been photographed by that time already because Bill Alexander said so.
That was the problem.
Yes, but then it comes back. Because of the fingerprints and all that malarkey, and the palm print, they wanted the rifle back. That's when the story actually starts getting legs and when they start saying, you know what, there's actually a palm print underneath and you know, this is what we apparently told you, allegedly told you. Which they didn't. Drain said that didn't happen. But had the machine malfunctioned, it would have been ample opportunity to re-photograph that same evidence again because it all came back. After that, it went back to the feds again.
But I would have said it came back stripped of certain items. There's certainly the July '62 letter to Oswald from the Fair Play for Cuba Committee had been stripped out, but they left it by mistake. They left the envelope there with the date on it. You got a Fair Play for Cuba Committee in the corner, left-hand corner, and then you got Lee Harvey Oswald, his Fort Worth address, his new Fort Worth address on there, but no letter. Oswald in touch with the Fair Play for Cuba Committee in July of '62? No wonder they took it out. That doesn't fit. That doesn't fit. Doesn't fit at all.
No, I bet. Yeah. Right, one more document then, come on.
No, there's plenty here.
Oh.
We've got a few more actually. Here.
Aren't you in luck? Can we have another quick break?
No, we'll do this one first.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
To Lewis Stokes. Oh, Mr. Case Nagel. I'm advised that the committee, this is from Richard Case Nagel to Lewis Stokes, July 9th, 1979.
Late, very late.
Dear Mr. Chairman, I'm advised that the committee will release its final report this month on its investigation into the assassination of President John Kennedy, and that such report will conclude that the murder may have been arranged by members of organized crime and their associates, namely by James Hoffa, Carlos Marcello, or Santos Traficante, AO. I doubt that there's any person alive today, at least not in the United States, who knows more about Lee Oswald's associates' activities and frame of mind during the months of July, August, and September 1963, the period when certain well-laid plans were formulated, than I do. And I state for the record that none of the aforementioned individuals of their alleged associates, including Jack Ruby, Charles Murray, and Nofio Pecora, influenced or bore even the slightest responsibility for the latest actions of Mr. Oswald. As I was never invited, for whatever reason, to testify before the committee, I enclose herewith copies of two affidavits dated November 21st, 75 and May 1878, respectively, and request that copies of this letter and the two affidavits be furnished to each member of the subcommittee who participated in the inquiry into President Kennedy's death. At one time, it would have cost the government merely a grant of immunity from prosecution and the lifting of so-called administrative sanctions against me for it to learn the truth about the president's assassination. Now, the government and the clowns on the committee can sit on it. Most sincerely.
Now then. Two attachments.
Yeah, where are they?
They were missing.
Oh!
Not there.
Well, why are they missing?
I don't know.
Oh, well, that's no good.
So that's an interesting happenstance with Richard Case. Whatever you think of Richard Nagel, you know.
But the 2 affidavits are missing.
Yep.
Oh.
And what you know. This was really post the committee itself, almost when they went out of business. So I went through. That was found in letters from members of the public. I think 3 boxes, 4 boxes, 3 or 4 boxes, and then there was another box which was letters received from members of the public after the committee had gone out of business. And I was curious, so I went on to the document register, which is like, you know, that's another thing. It's a finding aid, which is like full of redactions, or was full of, maybe they've released it, I don't know. But the 3 boxes of HSCA, the incoming documents, outgoing documents, the listing of all testimony, the listing of all witnesses, the listing of all interviews. It's got a huge, or it did have, when I last looked, huge redactions. I'm going to talk about complete pages redacted. Masses of redactions. I mean, that's a bloody finding aid, for God's sake. You know? What are they doing?
Yeah.
And I, naively, I looked in there because I was looking for the, you know, the lady, the Steenberger stuff.
Oh.
Trying to track that correspondence.
Louise.
Yeah, Louise Steenberger. No sign of that in there at all. In the that's supposed to be the log of everything that comes in. Well, it's not there. It's not there. And those 2, that letter's not there. And those 2 attachments, there's no reference to that there at all. So that's the only piece of paper, as far as I know, where you've got a letter from Richard Case Nagel
Saying
with 2
affidavits.
Where are they? I mean, you can believe him or disbelieve him, but let's bloody look
But they're
at
legal documents.
Yes, look at them.
They're legal documents.
Let's look at them.
Yeah, because they're affidavits. They are legal documents.
Dear.
Well,
It is frustrating.
did we go out with a bang? No, not really. We've got another pile left,
And
but you know what?
You can go back
Next time I come back, we'll talk about that. I won't bore you any longer, and I think we had a good time. It was good to meet up again. It's been, what, 4 or 5 months? So this concludes our interview. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time. Ciao.